Hello, fellow cognizant manlets. This is the Cognizant Manlet reporting. I recently stumbled across this thread here on Twitter, and from what appears to be a white nationalist account. And now I'm not going to be touching on this account per se, but just this post and the comments. Just a brief summary of what happened. A gentleman of colour approaches a presumably white woman, asks for a number, yada yada, and this post is kind of criticising him for doing that, and that men of colour should stay away and not harass women, blah 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 blah. And you shouldn't harass anyone. And underneath, I commented, sarcastically, as you know, I use irony and all that. And, I took a screenshot of the two. Well, there were three tallmen, but this one just shows the two tallmen. And I wrote, I'm so sick of seeing this. Where are the tall 6-foot-plus men keeping women and children safe? It's your duty. Look at these grown-ass men, clearly 6-foot-plus, and they didn't step in to protect her. Tall 6-foot-plus men, man up and start protecting women and children. They're counting on you. Now, look at the comments underneath from what I wrote, okay? So, I wrote, how tall 6-foot-plus men should be protecting women and children as it's their duty, because apparently, according to nature, it is. That's why women select them, right? And I'm not being sarcastic with that. It kind of is the truth. But look at all the comments just defying me. Just making up excuses. Daniel Penny, they're just NPCs, these Talloids, I swear. And I don't mean to generalize all tallmen, but it's the same thing. It's the same tall guys who boast about their height and how superior they are. It's the same tall guys who emasculate and dehumanize short men. The same tall guys who white knight for women and finger wag and lecture short men how we just need to accept how things are. And, they are always making, the appeal to nature fallacy with their, it's just Mother Nature, okay? Women want tall men because us tall guys are physically built to protect women. Like, I've had these arguments with both women and tall men, IRL and online. Okay? Now, I know there's a lot of bots on Twitter, but other social media platforms like Facebook, when I used to have a Facebook account, I used to get into arguments. Facebook, there's a lot of real people there because they're even uploading photos of their families and whatnot. And what I'm saying is, because people always say online isn't real life. But online is used by real life people, talking about real life scenarios. I can understand if they're bots or paid agents, but Facebook, sure, those bots and paid agents exist, but again, that's where a lot of the people there are real. And what I'm trying to say is I've had these arguments where they're bashing short men, they're lecturing short men to get over themselves and give up and that they're not entitled and women deserve to select tall men and there's nothing shallow about selecting tall men because tall men are protectors. Like, I've argued with a tall guy on there once and he gave me an example. He's like, well, if you had to pick a Great Dane or a Chihuahua, which dog would you pick? So it's like if that's your attitude, what I'm trying to get at is, based on the discussions and arguments I've had with both women and tall men when it comes to height bias, and it's not about the dating market. I've even had arguments with people on R-Tall when I was on Reddit, and even on Facebook and other social, even in real life. I've had arguments with women and tall men and sell-out, short men and normies, justifying the height bias in the workplace, how, it's normal, thus natural, thus ethical, just to promote a man because he's tall into a higher position, which is usually high income. So anyway, what I'm trying to get to is that if you're going to boast and pedestalize your height, you're going to justify misandric shortism. You're going to and use the appeal to nature fallacy. You're going to emasculate short men and constantly compare yourself with short men. And again, boast and talk yourself up and how high and mighty you are just because of your 6 foot plus height, because of your femur length. If you're going to do all that just to be like these guys in the comments, and now look for every excuse under the sun to dodge your duty or responsibility as a tall man to protect women and children, even though that's what you've been boasting about the whole time, best to stay quiet. Okay? Just best to stay quiet. If you're going to use the typical Daniel Penny, who, again, he ended up walking free, and I'm not dismissing what happened to him, he went through hell. But he's still, imagine he feels 5'7", I don't think he'd have supporters. I think he'd be thrown in jail. But, it's the Daniel Penny excuse, it's the women wanted the bear excuse. Women don't want the bear. That's so 2024. Women are now coming out saying, how they pick the bear over the short man. They're not going to pick a bear over a tall man. The bear is probably a metaphor for tall men. So, all these excuses, like, women said that they're independent now and don't need us. It's like those same women, okay, these modern day women, whether they're feminists or just, again, modern day post-feminist trad thoughts, okay, or moderates, they are still demanding tall men. They're still swiping right on Tinder. They're still denigrating short men, okay, and emasculating us that we can't protect them. They're glorifying you tall men. They're pedestalizing you. They've advantaged you. So there is no excuse for you as a tall man to avoid protecting women and children. And like I said, I'm not saying that you have to get out there and fight for women and children. Women aren't entitled to protection. Children is one thing, but grown women aren't entitled to protection. Just like they tell inkwells that, we're not entitled to women, to a relationship with a woman. No one's entitled in this life, and I keep saying that on my channel. Women aren't even entitled to protection from other women, because you've got a lot of women who are like, who are about the sisterhood, and, they're expecting other women to come and die for them and stick their neck out for them. No one's entitled. But what I'm trying to say is, again, if you're the type of tall man who feels that way, that you don't owe women protection, or you don't want to be seen as a protector because of your height, so you have the attitude like, how come I'm tall 6 foot plus, but I have to protect women and children? Well, if that's your attitude, best not to boast from the start. It's probably best not to put us short men down and denigrate us and finger wag how we should just accept Mother Nature and evolution and, life is a hierarchy. We've got to be physically on the bottom and hierarchically on the bottom and tall men on top in this hierarchical system, man-made hierarchical system. So yeah, again, I hope I'm making sense. If you're the type, if you feel as if you don't owe women protection, then don't boast about, how superior you are because of that reason. Don't boast about your tall height. That makes you capable of protecting. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, another thing I want to say was, there was this guy here. I don't know if he's a real account. I'd say he would be. Because like I said, I've dealt with people like this on other platforms where they're most definitely real people. But anyway, He's saying that short men should just accept our role as cannon fodder. Like, look at the comments from him. Deal with it, loser. Again, the whole femboy, constantly, these tall men constantly calling us femboys. It's just projection. The past, a lot of the past trans shooters since 2025 and this year have actually been tall men LARPing as women. So I don't know where he's getting this femboy, short men are femboy nonsense from, but anyway. Yeah, this guy here is trying to lecture me and Shortman that it's still our duty to die for the white race or for the nation or whatever. How come I, as a short man, before I go on, but he's saying that we shouldn't be breeding. So that's like our role now. I think he mentions it somewhere else. Anyway, pretty much what he said was like, that's the most we can do is just be cannon fodder, is to die. He even says, I've got to die for his daughters. Get fucked, dude. Protect your own family. If you're a tall guy, you're going to brag about your height. Again, protect your own fucking family. Don't drag Shortman. And the reason why I'm bringing this guy up is, why on earth, okay, should we as Shortmen, who are seen as weak and inferior, contribute to the protection of anything, any political movement? Why should I stick my neck out for your wife and daughters, or when it's your job to be protecting? And also when you've got these other tall guys in the other comments that I mentioned earlier who are refusing to fulfill that duty. So if tall men are even refusing, these same tall guys always boasting about their height and, and talking about how superior they are and emasculating short men, if these same very prideful tall men are refusing to fulfill that protector provider role and are even refusing to contribute to society as a whole, then why the hell should us manlets that you call weak and inferior and dysgenic, and the same manlets you want banned from reproducing, why should we fulfill that status, fulfill that role? Go to hell. Do it your fucking self. My God. But hold on. He's against misandry, guys. He doesn't like misandrous man-haters. And that's probably for another topic as well. About how the same people who complain, the pro-male crowd. I've mentioned a few times on my Twitter post now how the pro-male crowd, pro-male crowd, not necessarily MRAs, but the pro-male crowd, how they'll complain about misandry and how they're anti-feminists, and how they're concerned about the well-being of men. But these are the same men putting down other men all the time. They're always emasculating and denigrating other men, especially lesser men, whether they're short, ugly, lower class, socially inept, or just, have different unmanly hobbies. But that's for another video. Another thing I want to touch on as well is with MRAs, going back to the whole tall men evading the responsibility and duty of protecting women and children. I've argued with some tall MRAs who think it's misandrous to say that tall men should be expected to protect women and children. Well, I've got a question for you. How come it's misandrous, right, if I say tall men are the protectors of women and children, and you're going to get mad at that, but then when short men are getting literally dehumanized and experiencing more misandry more than any other man on this earth, you're silent, and you too gaslight short men saying that, height doesn't matter, all men are equally discriminated against. Anyway, I thought I'd just bring that up as well, because that's another problem with these hypocritical MRAs. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Please leave some comments, guys. If you're not sure, ask away. And yeah, that's it. Mail it out.